Everyone, we are back at it at the Thrive Well podcast. We are sitting here today with our business development manager of Thrive Realty Co., Kristin Bond. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm always behind that window taking little snippets of guys in here.
You are.
Getting the behind the scenes.
My double chins and
yeah, there was some good ones.
I know. They were.
But I'm happy to be here talking with you myself today.
Awesome. Let's get into it. Here's what I'd like to do. I could easily introduce you. I know who you are. I've been working with you now for 2 amazing years, but I would love for you to introduce yourself and who you are here at Thrive, how long you've been in the industry, so that people can really kind of get a benchmark of where you're coming from.
Okay. And I'm going to try and not give every detail like you say I always do. Okay. So I am Kristin Bond. I am now the business development manager here at Thrive.
Yep.
I started as the agent success manager here at Thrive. I've been in the industry licensed since April 2013. I was in property management for 10 years prior to being a licensed realtor. So was within the industry, gained a lot of knowledge there. We did do real estate there, but I was not licensed at that time. And here at Thrive, I really help not only our agents, but communicate with other agents, build relationships there to really help people figure out their next right step in real estate.
Yes.
Yes.
So talk to me about moving from, being a realtor, selling homes, which I know you still do. So that's not something that's gone. But when you're a full-time professional realtor, that's a very different lane than you're in today.
Absolutely.
So what has that transition been like for you?
For me, it's been really rewarding because I think once I felt I had figured real estate out as a realtor, I always am someone that wants to help other people that are surrounding me, that wants to help either the team or the brokerage or whatever place I've been at. I've wanted to help the growth of that company. Like I'm a very loyal person. Once I'm in, I'm in. And if I can help those people grow, build, make that place better, help the people there, that's something I'm really passionate about. So it kind of naturally started happening before I was here in like a part-time capacity. I don't think you can do any of that kind of stuff really part-time.
Right.
But that's how it was viewed because when I had other roles before, I only was required to be in office, say 2 or 3 days a week.
Sure.
So it was viewed part-time, but I was available to these people all the time. And then when you and I met and started discussing this opportunity, I just felt I was finally at a point. My kids were both finally going to be in school all day. Got licensed in 2013, was pregnant with my first son that same year. So in those earlier years when they were little and at home, it was great that I didn't have a full-time commitment to something like that because I was still able to raise my babies and do my work and everything else. But once we started talking, it was just perfect timing, honestly, because it was the first moment since I had been in the industry that I was willing to consider taking on a full-time position. And I think that real estate's great and I still love real estate and I love helping my clients and things like that. And I'm very sphere-based now, so it's fun. I'm out with people that I hang out with, my family, people that they know, and it's great and it's fun, but it wasn't totally fulfilling me either.
Yeah. Wasn't stretching you anymore.
More than just the real estate, just buying and selling houses.
Yeah. I think something that I notice about your work, not only here at Thrive, but what I was seeing before you were at Thrive, is your insatiable desire to strive for betterment. And
Absolutely.
It started in that personal development piece. And then I watched you do it through wanting to grow a community.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's where I could see a defined difference in being a professional realtor that focuses on continuing to up your game in that lane and sell more or help more people, whatever it may be, versus where your natural North Star was leaning towards, which was, I want to build community. I want to help others strive for more and do more and be better. And naturally, by me doing that, I know it will serve me too.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that honestly came from when I started. I didn't have that. So I started independent. I started at a brokerage that didn't give a lot of leadership or direction or things like that. And it was honestly before social media was even as big as it is now. So I really had to figure out a lot of those things on my own, which then made me passionate about, like, if I can help someone else figure it out and they don't have to sit on their own spinning their wheels like I did, I want to do that.
Yeah. Yep. And that's community-based because not everybody wants that. There are thousands of successful realtors out there that are like, oh, absolutely not. My door is closed. I'm not going to share my checklist with you. I'm not going to share my listing presentation with you. Fair.
I had that happen before. At my old brokerage, my broker had asked me to do a class with some of our new agents. It was at one of the offices I didn't frequent very much. And I walked in and one of the women there that I love, still talk to this day, she was like, what are you doing here? I said, oh, I was asked to do a class. She goes, you're going to share what you do? I was like, yeah, why?
Yes.
To me, it just was so, like, not me that I wouldn't.
Right.
That I would just go, oh, no, that's mine.
And I think that is relative. That either lives inside of you or it doesn't.
Yeah.
You have that desire to collaborate and help, and there's no scarcity around it, or you simply don't. There is scarcity around it. I know we've had agents even here before we were Thrive, when we were TWT, who were like, why do you teach so much? Why do you share what we're doing? Stop doing that. And I'm like, there's more houses to sell out there than we could ever cover ourselves. So we're good. Don't worry.
Yes. I can't sell every home in Michigan if I wanted to.
And you wouldn't want to, right? So as the business development manager, you talk to a lot of agents.
I do.
What would you say is a trend right now in which you're hearing from those agents? Because they're mainly not inside Thrive, even though you do develop and help people within Thrive. But focus more on the people that are outside of Thrive that you're meeting with.
I think that a lot of people, because of the shift that we've felt recently, and I think everyone tends to talk about it in terms of agents that have gotten into the business, say 2020 and on, that they only know it one way. Now that it's getting harder, it's different. But the reality is, I talk to a lot of agents who have been in much longer than that, and they're struggling as well, just because simply they have lost sight of or don't remember the things that they did used to do that worked. So people are starting to panic a little bit, I would say. I see a lot of producing agents kind of jumping when their client says jump, when maybe they had gotten away from that and they were putting boundaries up, which we have to do in this industry or they'll run us into the ground. And they're starting to have a little bit of scarcity around it because of the unknown, which none of us can predict the future. So I just think that there is a little bit of hesitation around what's coming, what's to come, where the industry is going to take us, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think it's leaving agents, whether they are newer or more seasoned, just nervous.
Right. Yeah, I wish there was a way for us to help people understand, like, one, while this exact situation from the certain causes that have happened in order for us to be where we're at have not occurred for many, many, many years, since the 80s. This isn't unknown. And if you're willing to stop, slow down, educate yourself, align with the right people, this is not as scary as it seems.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be motivated by that fear. You could just simply do the right work at the right time and work with the marketplace and the flow that we're in. It's no different than we just heard a loan officer who's been in the business for, 20 plus years. He's standing up right now giving state of the market to Thrive. And he's like, listen, you can work like there's everything to lose and you'll be here on the other side of that. Or you can sit back and complain and worry and be scared and be paralyzed. And I promise you, you'll be out of the industry.
I think people just have to have the confidence that they're doing the right things. So you and I had this conversation recently, and knowing that if you're consistent enough with doing the right things, knowing that the results will come. We can all spin our wheels and look up every article and every podcast and every this and that to try and figure out what we think is going to happen and when it's going to happen. But as long as we're doing the right things consistently, the results will show up. And then also, we have an agent here who's been in the business 9 years, and she's doing things now to insulate herself. She's been very sphere-based, referral-based business, has never worked leads, never done circle prospecting, anything like that. And because of what she's hearing us talking about and just being prepared and waterproofing herself for the fact that maybe her sphere alone cannot get her through this, she's doing things she's never done before.
Right.
And I think that's the important piece. We're not saying now you have to completely change your business and continue to do these things long term, but knowing how to do them in case you need them through the changing times.
Why not?
Being able to pull that lever.
Yeah.
I'd rather know how to do all of the things and pull the levers I want to and need to when I want to and need to, versus only knowing my business one way, and then the market does change and that one way isn't working.
Yeah. I think it takes one thing before confidence, which is willingness. That's it.
Yeah.
A willingness to be open-minded, to do the work, to keep your head down, to not complain. Just a simple willingness to just lean in. That's it. Okay. I love that. And I think hopefully that's helpful for people to know. One, you're not alone. If you're feeling scared, if you're feeling like, gosh, what was working isn't working anymore, guess what? You're not alone. You're among many. Let's talk about leverage for a minute. So let's talk about the fact that as an agent, as a business development manager, you not only help people understand leverage, you take full advantage of the system that we have here at Thrive yourself in order to be able to serve people in your sphere and your family and friends. And you have a very robust full-time role at Thrive, well beyond the agent role. So how could you explain that in a nutshell to any agent, whether they're at Thrive or not? Because leverage is possible anywhere. It doesn't have to be here.
Yeah. I think, and you kind of touched on it even with talking about the willingness. I think that applies here as well. I think many agents, especially who have been in the business and done business a certain way and primarily by themselves, it's hard to give up that control, so to say, to other people. And I had that moment when I first came here. The first time an offer was being written for me, I was like, what's happening? This feels very uncomfortable. But the reality is, if you lean in, you're willing to see how that goes. It has changed what I've been able to do. There's no way I would still be able to do any production here on top of my role, on top of being a mom, if it weren't for leaning into the leverage. I just would not be able to.
Yeah.
But I think the willingness comes into play, and you have to be willing to give it a chance and see what it can actually do for you, and then go from there. I don't think enough people even give it a chance, or no one will do it like me. I can't do that. My clients will be upset. It's not me doing it. The reality is, if you're setting the right expectations with your clients and you're explaining it as a benefit to them, which it is, they're getting 2 agents, right? They're getting a team of people. They actually think that's great.
Yeah. And I'm just going to cut it real dry here, which is to all the people that think leverage is weak, think leverage is just not the way they would do it, and so they can't hand it off. My response is like, thank God. Because how selfish are you? There's no way, there is absolutely no way for you to achieve the level of service and the level of business that you can with leverage. And let's break it down outside of real estate. So let's break it down outside of real estate and think of something where you just have to blindly trust the evolution of a better idea. Okay. Yeah. So think about when we used to run around to Kroger, Whole Foods, Plum Market. I don't care what level bouginess you are with your food. Yes. Like wherever you're at, we used to run there after work, before work, during work, trying to get it all in and fit it all in. Yep. And then all of a sudden, Shipped was born. Instacart was born. And your groceries could be gotten for you.
Yes.
And then they were delivered to you. And then you were like, well, shit. Oh my gosh, I can order a bra online now too. All of these things are leverage.
Yes.
You don't have to go to Target. You can order right online and pick it up, have it delivered, whatever you want. We've got 6 ways to Sunday in which you don't have to do the thing anymore.
Yeah. If you don't want to. I think that's important too. Like I am not someone who gets joy out of going to the grocery store. I don't. My sister-in-law does. She's like, I like going to pick my own fruit and vegetables and I don't. So to me, if it's, a weekend or an evening and I can spend that time going to do something fun with the boys versus going to the grocery store, I'm going to have my groceries delivered to me. And I'm going to go do something fun with my kids.
Right. Well, and I think you said something really important there. Well, I just don't get joy out of it. So it's an easy thing for me to leverage. But let's say you're like your sister-in-law. Let's say you do get some joy out of it and you love to pick up those apples and see how shiny they are. Listen, I'm right there with her. I do too, because there's nothing more annoying to get a bruised apple. Like, why'd you give me that apple? Of all the apples you looked at, ma'am.
That's when you say, now it allows you to pick your preferred shoppers. You're like, no, that is not my preferred shopper.
That's the bruised apple lady. But let's say you do get joy out of it.
Yeah.
And you get joy out of obviously being with your kids.
Yeah.
So the Maslow's hierarchy, the Pareto principle, they all rely upon, well, which one brings more joy? And if you were to spend more time on that, would it allow you to be more fulfilled, more productive, and happier?
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is, like, it doesn't have to be solely because you find, there's lots of things that we can find joy in.
Yeah.
In fact, if you're trained very well and you've got a really great mindset, you can find joy in pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And so it's really a matter of like, well, but where is your time going? And if you spent it in these areas, would you be a happier, healthier, more productive person? Yes or no? That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's leverage in a nutshell.
Just in a nutshell.
I'm sweating. I got a little passionate there. So this is the Thrive Well podcast.
Yes.
We also have a Thrive Well committee and program within Thrive. So I have my own thoughts on what it means to thrive well. But when you think about thriving well, what does that mean for you?
I think that's a loaded question because it's probably changed a lot in the last 2 years. I honestly don't think prior to coming to Thrive, I really knew or understood that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And yes, I think everyone has these feelings of like, well, I want my family life to be great, and I want my business to be great, and I want my health to be great, and I want to look great, and I want,
who
all
doesn't,
these things.
Right? Yes.
Yes. But I think until you're in the right environment that starts helping you realize that there's a group of people that are could be doing that together, and B, that it is possible, because I think that when you do have a busy career and a busy family life and all that kind of stuff, we tend to just be like, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. When am I going to do that? And the reality is, as you said, with making choices, right? There's always a way. You just have to make the right choices, figure out what that looks like. And I think for me, as I've grown and evolved through being here, I have realized that there is a way to do all of those pieces, still have the life you want, leverage again, right? Like being at a brokerage that leverages my real estate business for me so that I can still have weekends with my kids, right? That, a place that values, I think too, when you're aligned with other people that value those same things in order to thrive well, being at a brokerage that cares about more than just numbers.
Your deals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So being at a brokerage where actually when Jody and I left the gym the other day, this guy that walked out with us said something. We're like, oh, our CEO makes us come here. He was like, what? And we obviously were being funny, but we were like, oh yeah. She's like, no, go to the gym first, then come to the office. And he was like, that's amazing. Like the fact that it's being led from the front with those same things being important, I think just has changed my whole mindset on it. And knowing that, you kind of touched on it earlier, people who are happy and healthy and things like that naturally are going to produce better.
Right.
Are going to do better work, are going to show up better.
Yep.
And so I know that wasn't like a direct answer to the question, but I think it's still like in an evolution for me of what exactly it means to me. Because I'm just, I think, starting to hit that stride of feeling like I am thriving well.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And it is relative to the person. It's going to be slightly different to everybody, right? Like, Ryan thriving well is going to look different than you, a mom of two who has a life partner, right? So there's space for it all. And I appreciate the answer of just saying, well, focusing on the fact that I can leverage the things that take a great deal of time that allow me to focus on the things I'm really passionate about, my family.
Yeah.
It's why we all come to real estate.
Yeah.
I find it absolutely hysterical and asinine, all in the same breath of like, wait a second, we all came here for happiness and freedom to own our own time. And then no one told you have to earn that. And then no one told you have to sustain that. And then no one tells you how.
Yes. Yeah.
And what you actually end up finding is you pull back all the onion layers of top producers and the most successful team leaders out there, and they're unhealthy, they're unwell, they have broken relationships, they're unhappy, truly, but they just keep doing it because they can.
Yeah. And I have this conversation with actually a lot of agents outside of Thrive when I sit and chat with them. And I say, okay, well, it's great that you made X, Y, or Z amount of money, but you're telling me that you're not healthy.
Exactly.
You never see your kids or your spouse. You are on the verge of a divorce,
right?
Whatever it may be, right?
Yes.
There's all these different things. And in my mind, if all of that is falling to the wayside and going sideways, does it really matter I made all this money?
I've been there.
Because to me, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how, there's so many people that's the measure of success only, is where the business is at. And no one does look behind the curtain at, well, is all this successful as well?
Right. Well, and nobody cares, right? I think that's the worst part about it is the archaic way of doing real estate and the traditional way, unfortunately, is you work inside businesses that don't care whatsoever about your well-being.
Well, and it's always just more is the conversation. I'll never forget the very first Thrive event I was at was our business planning clinic for the next year. And I was kind of there just as a spectator because literally no one had really even met me yet outside of a few of the special ops. And I sat back and watched Justin talk through with some of the agents, like what's the number for next year? And it wasn't to push a bigger number. It was to have clarity around what the number was and why. And I remember an agent getting up there and the number was actually a little less. And he said, okay, tell me why. Tell me about that. Well, we're hoping to be pregnant next year. We have 4 out-of-town destination weddings. We have, right? He said, okay, and is that number still enough, even though it's a little less, is that still enough to achieve what you and your family want to achieve and still live that life, enjoy those destination weddings, hopefully have this baby coming and everything else? And she was like, absolutely. He's like, okay, good. We're going to coach, train, mentor,
to
everything to this.
Yes.
So it wasn't like she was being put down because it was less. It was just truly about helping build that clarity around why is that the number. And if you're still thriving well and your life is how you want it to look and you financially can do what you need to do with that number, then that should be fine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's important because I think our industry definitely has that rat race appeal to it. And human nature, when you start making more money than you've ever made before, human nature is, well, oh my gosh, what would it be like if I made more? If I made more.
There's no ceiling.
Yes. So it's a natural, incessant cycle we're in unless someone stands up and says, hey, you can make a lot of money and enough money for you, whatever that life is. And someone can stand up and say, you don't have to do it that way, though. And you don't have to lose everything to get it. So I have a dear friend from a long time ago, decades ago. He was very smart entrepreneur. He made a ton of money from sacrificing a lot of his time very early on in his adulthood. And I remember looking at him at that time and thinking, why are you doing all of this? I was 5 years younger than him. So it was really beyond me. Like I just did not get the sacrifice. And when he made his money, I said, well, what have you learned now? Like, what is it? How do you feel now? What's happening next? You're so young, and he could retire. That's how much money he had made. And he said, you know what? I'm not sure, but I'm going to find out. He said, because what I have learned is money makes people more of who they are. And he's like, I want to make sure that I'm the best person I can be. That's what I want to make sure.
I love that.
So it has been something that I certainly have lived by since I started my career and making money. And no matter if I made hardly any money or tons of it, I've always been like, but who am I?
Yeah.
Because that's really at the end of the day, no one remembers how much money you made unless you're like Bezos. Right? But from like Jess Woodbeck to Kristin Bond, no one's standing at her funeral going like, she really nailed it. You're 10 through 12.
Yes. That's on the tombstone.
No.
2018, this amount.
Right. Exactly. So I'm glad to hear that. Now, okay, let's leave people who are listening to this with something that they can take away and hopefully implement in their business almost immediately. So if you're an agent, Kristin sits with dozens and dozens and dozens of people a month, leading to hundreds and hundreds over the course of a year that are in this line of profession, doing this exact work, contemplating what's happening next, contemplating where they've come from.
Yeah.
What can you help an agent understand? And again, no matter where they're at, what level they're at, how to thrive well in their current business looking at 2024?
I think really knowing that a conversation never hurt anyone, first of all. So knowing that you have to find the right fit for you. And in order to do that, you need to have conversations with people. And when I sit with people, I let them know I'm there to figure out what is going on in their business, how they do their business, and if there's somewhere I can help. And that isn't always, I think people tend to always think that's like, hey, you're going to come to thrive. That's not always you're going to come to thrive. Sometimes that's connecting them with someone else. Sometimes that's me helping them with some knowledge that I have. Sometimes it's coming to a workshop or a training that, yes, we hold here at Thrive, but that doesn't mean necessarily you're going to be the right fit to come to Thrive. So I think just knowing that use the people in your network, use the people that you have around you to figure out how you can do one step better or one thing different or learn one thing more. And those conversations can naturally happen without the fear of it being forced that you're being, taken somewhere else or,
Isn't that funny? There is a lot of fear around that. And I can relate, truly. And I think we all can. I mean, when these cloud-based, well, first of all, it started with Keller Williams. And, bless Keller Williams, love Keller Williams, worked there for many years. But the recruiting atmosphere really started hardcore there because you could recruit nationwide.
Right.
And still get what was called profit share.
Right.
And then these cloud-based brokerages were born, and then the nationwide countries, continents,
worldwide
became possibilities.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you watched people move from truly genuine conversation, caring to connect, from everyone had a dollar sign over their head.
Yeah.
And it was, how much is that person going to make me if I put them in my downline?
Correct.
And so I understand the fear that people have.
Yeah.
The good news about us, truly, is it is a 50-50 coin toss.
Yeah.
Like, we aren't recruiting everybody. We don't want to recruit everybody.
We won't be the right. I think the thing too is we will not be the right fit for everyone. And we know that, and we're okay with it.
Yep.
So I think that's a big difference too, because we're not a headcount model. We truly are finding the people that do want to thrive well, do want to do business in the way that we believe it should be done.
Yeah. Well, I think if we talk about your stats from a business development management standpoint, you do not recommend Thrive to 70% of the people you sit with on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
You do not recommend Thrive to 70% of the people you sit with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah.
100% of the people that someone at a cloud-based brokerage or a nationwide recruiting brokerage sit with are recommended to join them.
Yeah.
Massive difference.
I had a role at a previous brokerage, and I joke with people when I sit with them now because I use it as an example, but I literally had the broker say to me one day, well, did they pass their exam and they have a pulse?
Exactly.
Bring them.
I know.
And, to me, it was, that was the model. It was the model.
It
I'm
is.
Not
And it
good,
is
bad,
a model.
like it's just different. And I think here we we don't want nor need everyone. So I think there's just a difference in conversation. There's a difference in, I'm looking for talented people who align with what we do. And I will have a conversation with anyone. And if I can help you by teaching you something, pointing you to a workshop, pointing you to an event, connecting you with another brokerage that maybe I do think could serve you really well, I'm happy to do that. If it's not Thrive, that's okay.
Yep, absolutely. Love it. Yeah. How can people find you if they want to connect with you, kind of pick your brain, network with you, whatever it may be?
Easiest way is probably on IG.
Okay.
So it's at Red Lip Kristin. You can DM me, follow me there, or just directly text me.
Awesome.
So 586-850-4921.
There it is.
There it is.